In Asheville, on July 14th and 15th, more than 400 people got together to talk about conservation. And this was at a listening session convened by the Obama administration on their America's Great Outdoors initiative. And what they did over the course of 2 days was take ideas and suggestions and advice for how the federal government can work better with local communities to do two things. One is to protect more land, and the other is to reconnect American families, especially kids, with nature. The America's Great Outdoors Initiative was launched in the middle of April in Washington. The Obama administration invited people from around the country. I was actually lucky and fortunate enough to be invited, and I went. There were about 600 of us, and it was a two-day conference in which the administration did not have an agenda. They were launching a process. And so the president and his cabinet members that day laid out a game plan. And after these listening sessions are all done, some lucky federal employees are going to try and bring all this information together and write up a plan that's due in the middle of November to President Obama.
So what happened in the listening session?
It really was a listening session. It was not the government coming to say, hey, we're here to help you and here's how it's going to go down. What they did is they had a brief introduction and a video, and then they divided the 400 of us into, I think, about 12 or 14 different classrooms. And in each of those meeting rooms, they asked 4 questions. There was a question about what is working well in your community or state, what challenges or obstacles do you have, and how might you overcome them, how can the federal government be a better partner, and are there any new tools or methods that would help you conserve more land or connect families to nature better. What was interesting about this is they came down from Washington not just to hear what we wanted them to do, but they wanted to know how we've been successful, maybe in innovative or creative ways, so that they could share that information with everybody else in the country. One of the great things that we heard from the officials from Washington was that, in their view, the conservation community in North Carolina is way ahead of the curve compared to the rest of the country. We're doing things that are not even contemplated in other states. And one indication of that was the enormous crowd we had at the listening session. I think the only crowds that were bigger were maybe in Los Angeles and Seattle, and those are much larger cities than Asheville, and they were amazed at how many people came out. And Tom Strickland, who is basically the number 2 ranking official of Interior, finished up his remarks by saying he wished he could bottle up the energy and passion of the people in Asheville and the North Carolina mountains, because they would love to send that to the rest of the country. So I hope what we're going to see is some of the things we've done in North Carolina being replicated in other states. For instance, we have 4 state trust funds that fund conservation projects, and 2 of those are funded with a dedicated revenue source. That's fairly rare in this country, and the folks from Interior Department were very interested in how we do that. We also talked about our conservation and diversity program, where we're bringing together land trusts and minority communities and landowners to work together to conserve their properties, and that has not always been done around the country in the conservation movement as well. So those kinds of things, we hope that they spread far and wide to people all across the country. Now, in terms of the things we wanted from them, there were a number. I think our most important ones were that the federal government fully fund the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is supposed to receive $900 million every year to fund land conservation projects around the country. Only once in its 40-plus year history has it gotten that much money. Second, we want them to make permanent the expanded federal tax incentives for landowners who donate a conservation easement on their property. Third, we want them to make some of their federal programs that we interact with to conserve land more user-friendly. Let's just say that there are some bureaucratic hoops that land trusts have to jump through sometimes, which do not make it an easy process. So if you're interested in submitting your own comments to the federal government about the America's Great Outdoors Initiative, you can go to our website, which is www.ctnc.org/AGO, which is short for America's Great Outdoors. And there you can see talking points that we developed for the listening session in Asheville. You'll also find a link to the site where you can submit your comments to the folks in Washington.